car dealerships here, like the one with the Mercedes sign right here. Let's just inflate that. You can't see it right now. But none of them have signs that can say Happy Holidays, Mercedes Holiday Savings, come in. But they also don't say Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah. Like, look at the CarMax sign, nothing. It says CarMax, but nothing. No kind of holiday spirit or anything. Zero. Now let's see what it says on the overpass, the overhead digital display. Like, we love you. We want you to have a bright holiday season. Please do not drink and drive. Let's see what it says. Naughty drivers get tickets. No need to speed. I like that. Naughty. They should say, naughty drivers go on Santa's naughty list. So, no need to speed. But they should also say on the sides, Happy Holidays. Mix the positive and negative. So they're like, okay, I'm doing the right thing. And then, oh, wow, thank you for caring. Thanks for saying Happy Holidays. On these overpasses here, on the highway, truly, the villages, like I'll show you the sign that's further down, Botanical Gateway Green adopts a segment of the highway. Well, they can put up some Christmas stuff on the overpasses. Truly. Working with the highway authority. Each town, these go through different towns, and they adopt the overpass. And so we get a movement called Adopt the Overpass for the holidays. And they decorate the highway overpasses. Now the other one, adopt the train station, adopt the bus station, and then if you have ports, adopt the port of entry. Truly. So for cruise ships and that, the local community would come in with the business that, whoever owns the harbor, and they would adopt it for the holidays and set up and then break down. They can work with youth groups in churches. But there's also Young Life is a youth group, Boys Club, Girl Scouts, and all that are throughout the United States. And by the way, why don't Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and Young Life and Cub Scouts and Brownies and Indian Princesses, which is like Indian Princesses like Girl Scouts. Emily, my niece, did Indian Princess, similar to Girl Scouts. But again, why don't they adopt the Children's Hospital? Truly, leave it up to the troops, like the Boy Scouts and Girl Scout troops, to do stuff at the children's hospitals. Let the youth take responsibility for the youth. It's not like they don't have parental guidance. They have a troop master who is an adult, and then they have an assistant. So there's usually 2 adults. And if they want, it can be, a girl can be part of it as well. Yeah. Just like a dad can be part of the Girl Scouts. We're not talking no boys in the Girl Scouts, no LGBTQ, or the Boy Scouts, but they can have a father who can volunteer to lead a troop of Girl Scouts or be an assistant to a female who leads a troop of Girl Scouts. But there must be a female with the male. And they must not be related. And the male needs to be a father. And this way, the mother, they cross-check each other. And it's the same way on the other side. Remember, Jerry, who was with Penn State, if Joe Paterno would have just turned him in, it ruined his whole life. So if you don't think you should turn evil people in, go over the Joe Paterno story. Truly, go over the Joe Paterno story. If you don't think you should turn evil people in, go over the Joe Paterno story. All he had to do is turn in Jerry Sandusky. He could have got another coordinator. And I was a huge fan of Joe Paterno. My whole thing, Penn State, linebacker, and then the movie about the kid who gets sick and his brother was a running back at Penn State. I love that movie. But the whole point is, it destroyed the university. It destroyed Joe Paterno. Incredibly good guy. But he failed to do the right thing. And this is what Warren Buffett talks about. And you keep on acting like it's okay, but Joe Paterno didn't recover. He had a heart attack and died. And his family lost everything. He couldn't protect his state and his estate, and he got sued by everybody, including, I would believe, the university. Penn State sued him for damaging their reputation. He did incredible damage by not turning him in to Penn State University, and Penn State University should have sued Joe Paterno State for a major, major lawsuit. I mean, he tarnished all those coaches, the offensive coordinators, the other ones that had no idea. And how did he know about it? He caught Jerry taking showers, or a shower, with little boys naked. Not his boy, but little boys naked. And Warren Buffett says it takes a lifetime to build a reputation and 5 minutes to lose it. But you want to put the evil into me and say, no, it's okay, you're racist and everything else. You destroyed everything in my life continuously. All the wrongful terminations, over 10 of them. Easily over 10 of them. You impoverished me continuously. You beat on me. You wronged me in every way continuously. And then I get upset about it. You took away my designations. You took away my career. Not once, but twice. And then all these people get all this goodness to them, and I go through 2 breakdowns, and everybody treats me like garbage. It's unbelievable. And then I watched the John Cappelletti story, and how he's there for his little brother, and he's scoring touchdowns and helping him out. And yes, his little brother got a little overzealous with it. He did. But it was a good thing in one way, because it gave him such a will to live. Is John has scored 2 touchdowns today. You know, this was for my brother and his fight against his disease. But again, stories like that. Jarrett, he had a great life with Subway. I like Jarrett. He lost all that weight, seemed like a great guy. And he had life, you know, in his hands. Life was his oyster. He was literally nationally and internationally recognized. He had everything, fame, money, everything. All he needed to do was find a good girl. and find a good girl, a committed relationship. She could have played dress up for him. Truly, behind closed doors, if he wants her, as long as it's with her, she could dress up like a little girl or a brownie or a Cub Scout or whatever. My friend talked about that, how his wife dresses up as a nurse and he plays doctor. They're in a committed relationship. And they play these fantasy things. And he was talking to me about, he worked with me at Baja. But and when I was dating Jen, he's like, we do this thing to spice things up. So, we don't get bored in the bedroom. So we create these fantasies in the bedroom. But Jared, all he had to do was get with a good woman. And so what? He marries a younger woman. He could have married a 21-year-old and no one would have said anything about it. Truly, he could have married, he could have hired a dating service. Truly, and this is what I don't understand. He could have hired a dating service, or Subway would have said you must get into a dating service, and that dating service will find you, and within 6 months to a year, you must start a relationship. And they can mandate that if you want to keep on, being our sponsor, our spokesperson. But he had everything, and he lost it. Don't you learn from these things? Unlike Bernie Madoff, he was a thief from the beginning. He never had anything. But these guys naturally earned it. And they had everything going for them. And all he had to do is turn them in. And he could have gotten help. Who knows? Maybe it was the start of his pedophilia. Maybe it was the beginning of his pedophilia. And turning him in might have saved him, because it was years, decades and decades it went on for. He covered it up for decades. So it could have been at his infancy. And then, obviously, if he turned him in, he would have had to get marital counseling. Think about his wife being with him all those years, and then their son turns out to be a pedophile. Think about the mother. I think about Joe's wife. And, the whole thing. And I think about also Jerry Sandusky's wife. And now her husband turns out to be a pedophile, and she wasn't part of it. She truly didn't know. And then her son turns out to be a pedophile. Think of her as a mother, what she went through. She had no ability because no one outed them. And then she gets stuck with decades and decades, and then everything gets taken from them, and she gets left with nothing. Now, you could call it negligence because she didn't investigate. But he was coaching. He was always gone, and he was naturally always with boys. Whether they were in college, high school, or younger. So it was natural for him to be around them and in the locker room with them because he was the coach. And he was a good coach. That's why Joe didn't fire him. He kept his job all those years because he was very good at his job. But the whole thing is, if you don't think doing the right thing and outing somebody, think about Miss Sandusky. Somebody should talk to her about how she feels about never knowing. And if people would have turned in her son and turned in her husband, number one, turned in her husband, they would have had help for the son automatically. The son would have never became a pedophile. The son would have never became a pedophile. So you think you're doing a right thing by brushing it under the carpet? It's a ticking time bomb just getting worse. Your kid, like me and Jen talked about Glenbrook South, how they keep Charles out of Asian gang, because an Asian gang started at Glenbrook South. We want him to have nothing to do with it. So we made sure that Charles was busy. Me and Jen talked about it, and we could account for his whereabouts all the time. Who he was hanging out with, what clubs he was part of, making sure he wasn't involved in any gangs. Oh yeah, we worked together and talked about it, and she kept track of Charles. I went to Charles's graduation, which was held at Northwestern University for his school. And then we went out to eat afterwards. Charles, me, Jen, and Mom. And her mom. Her sister, Gina, wasn't there. And I don't know where she was. And her father, he didn't come. So it was me and Jen, Jen's mother, and Charles. The four of us went out for the graduation dinner together. We went to an Asian restaurant. And that's the first time, because I had this big noodle dish. She brought over the scissors. She asked for it. Mrs. Kim's like, oh, yeah, the noodles are long. You're not used to this. And she raised her hand. The Korean waitress came over. And she said something to her in Korean. She came back with the scissors and picked up my noodles and cut them. And I thank Mrs. Kim. It made it easy for me to eat. But again, we kept track. And I made sure, working with her, that Charles never got involved. Because I guess they were talking to him, trying to, get him to get involved. So again, I love her family. I consider it mine. It's just like we always worked out stuff with Gina. Where Gina was in school, how she was performing, what she going to do for internships, what she going to do after college, and so on. But anyways, off the point, or back to the point, the whole thing is, you think you're doing the right thing covering it up. It just gets worse. I had to stop my brothers from making mistakes. No matter how much they demanded me to, do this, I told them no. Saving them from any further involvement. Forcing them to stay clean. So, I became the bad guy. But I'd rather it became the bad guy, and neither of my brothers ended up going to jail. And I was happy with being the bad guy. I'd rather have them have their freedom and their life than being behind bars. And so if it takes me being the bad guy, so be it. But anyways, I'm going to get off here. I'll go straight. But the whole point is, there's no Christmas spirit on this highway. And yes, I'm looking for the Gateway Green sign. I'll show you where it is. It's up by Ohio. Getting off at Ohio, they have the thing, I think. And it says adopt a highway, meaning adopt a section of the highway and beautify it. But they can work with, again, those different youth groups. There's lots of youth groups, whether church youth groups, Boy Scout, Girl Scouts, and so on. And they can get the kids out. Now you got to give them their protective equipment. So they get a face mask and gloves and so on. But the kids learn community service and they learn caring for their city and keeping it beautiful. And they should be telling them, you're going to inherit this. What city do you want to inherit? A city that's decaying and filthy? Or a city that is beautiful and clean? And then, what do you want to give it to your family? A city that's beautiful and clean? Or a city that's going down into the dumps and decaying? But they should talk to youth groups about that. And get them to think about the future. My football coach used to. He'd be like, tell you about how time works. You blink your eyes once, the season's over. You blink your eyes twice, you're middle age. You blink your eyes 3 times, you're an old man. I can't believe I'm 59 or going on 59. I mean, my mind still thinks I'm a kid, and it really is short. You think it's slow because you live in the moment, but if you step back out of the moment, watch how fast that clock spins around in 60 seconds. Yes, it's 60 seconds, but just watch the second hand spin around and how fast it spins around, and calculate the rate of speed, right? But just watch it and then tell your kid to watch the clock. You have to have a second hand on the clock. Not a minute, not the hour. Watch the second hand. And you want to tell them how precious time is and explain that to them. And every day you have to make a choice of what you're going to do with this world and who you're going to be in this world. And watch the clock and just sit there and ask him what he observes when he sees the second hand. And tell him, just focus on the second hand. And what do you think? What's going through your mind? So you know what they see, and then if they don't get it, you can guide them. Didn't that move pretty quick? 1 minute went by like that. Pretty quick. Think about your life. That dial goes by every day. It seems like it's long, but here's the Gateway Green. Right here. See that leaf right there? So, again, you can adopt the highway. And this is what Chicago does well, getting off here. There was the flags I used to see hanging. Yeah, the big American flag. You can't see it. Let me see if I can turn it up. But you can't see it. It kind of behind the light. It's beautiful. It's a huge American flag blowing in the wind. It looks gorgeous. Oh, there's the other one too. Dang it. But think about youth groups. Here's another one. Let me just... There it is right there. See that right there? So, that's about beautifying the highway. So, again, think about that. You can get youth groups. And seniors that don't have things to do, they can, supervise the youth. So, older seniors in that, they can stay active in that, and they can advise the youth. So, the youth groups, they have their own cleaning crews, but this is stuff that they do extra special. You can paint murals on the side. Get some artists and paint some murals. And then cover them up every so many, like you have it for a year, your mural sits, and then you cover it up. And then or you remove it. Truly, with dry ice, it can remove paint, the dry ice pellets, and they just evaporate. And so you can clean the paint off. You just do it lightly. It won't destroy the cement if done right. You have to figure out the power, but it's just taking off the paint. Or there's other ways to take off the paint. You can just roll paint remover on it. Truly, you have to recondition the concrete in that and seal it again before you put up the next mural. But you can roll. You know how you roll on paint? Well, take paint remover, put it in that little tray, take the roller on a long pole, roll it back and forth in that, and then roll it up and down the wall, and then let it sit for a little bit, and then wash it down with a power sprayer. A power sprayer. Truly, just water. If you want, it can be soap and then water, but roll it on, and then you can strip the paint. And then once you've done that and cleaning the brick, because you got to remove it, clean it all off, and then you got to the brick or the concrete. You got to recondition. And then once you recondition, then you want to put a clear coat sealer on. And then they can paint the mural on top of that. So again, you can team up people in senior centers and that, because they don't got a lot to do. Team them up with Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, youth groups. And I'm talking very young, like Cub Scouts. You know, the teenagers, they need more active parents, you know, middle-aged parents. They need more the middle-aged parents that are very fit and can move, because they want to do things incredibly active. But the little ones, they love older people. Like my mom, she used to babysit for all kinds of little ones, you know. I think under, say, 6, 7, 8 might be a little bit old, but still, I think 8 might be good. 8, 7, 6, and the seniors. And they can work with them. And they can do all this community stuff, and it gets them out of the house, and it organizes. We're going to do this with this youth group today. We're going to do this with this youth group today. And what do? They get to explain. They can talk about their history and growing up and right and wrong. But you have to have good mentors. Truly, you have to have good seniors that deliver the right message. Like I like the commercial where they have the backup parent and the backup friend. And they come in and like, okay, you're in now, Anthony, or whatever it says. It's a good commercial. And he comes in and the second person is actually better. And so, again, getting the right one to mentor them, and now seniors can feel vitality every day, wake up with a purpose. We're going to do this and this and this with these different groups. And then the kids get to hang out with the seniors and get to respect their elders. They get to see their elders in good lights, helping them clean up and beautify and doing the right thing. Even arts and crafts. They can teach them arts and crafts. They can play board game together. Watch the search for Bobby Fischer. What is Bobby Fischer doing? He plays with Ben Kingsley, who's a master, but an elderly man. And Bobby is a very young child. And then he plays speed chess in the park with an elderly black man who is, Lawrence Fishburne is great in that role. But he's just a young kid, and he learns speed chess. Think quick. You know? And so he can get his opponent off because his opponent's in the layback and analyze, and he makes moves. Snap, snap, snap. And his opponent isn't used to that. His opponent's constantly put the pressure on. Because if Bobby Fischer, and he does this, snap, snap, his opponent will make a move, and he'll make it. An opponent will sit back, and you get all these minutes to think about it, and then he'll make a move, and boom, Bobby Fischer will make a move, and now it's back on his opponent. Keeping him under pressure. He's always on the clock. When Bobby Fischer takes a long time, the opponent gets to sit back, and he gets to analyze the board and think about everything. Think about what Bobby Fischer is doing. But if you make a snap move, all of a sudden, your opponent doesn't have time to analyze your position, and now he's got to think about his. And he's constantly on the offensive, but you're putting him on the defensive. So you can put pressure on him by keeping him under the clock, on the clock continuously, putting the ball back in his court really quick. So that's what the speed chess did. None of those grandmasters from Russia and that understood that, and he mixed it up in the game. Not all the time would he put the pressure on. Other times, he wanted them to sit back and lean and think about it. Again, at times he wanted them to sit back and relax and analyze and then think about it. If you got the advantage and they're thinking, wow, I'm really in a screwed position. that puts pressure on. How am I going to get out of this? Because if you got the advantage, you want them to sit back and analyze and realize they're on the defensive, you're winning and they're losing, taking away their momentum. So again, doing these things, understanding these things. But I'm right here by Northwestern University. The medical school, the law school, the hospital, and they have graduate and undergraduate classes here. Yeah, you can take undergraduate, and there's adult education down here. I took classes as a student at large, and there's adult education. I went to Northwestern and got my CFP education. I also went to St. Xavier's first, and I transferred to Northwestern. I like St. Xavier. It's a good Christian college. That's where I went first for my CFP. I started at, but the drive was really far out there, and Northwestern was a closer drive to where I worked and everything. So I transferred, and the sister I used to talk to, a nun, St. Xavier, the sister ran the adult education. We had a actually good relationship. I talked to her, and she's a wonderful woman. And I transferred from St. Xavier to Northwestern and finished my CFP at Northwestern. So again, and I also did one class, my tax class, online, not at Northwestern. So I transferred in a couple, did one online, not at Northwestern, and transferred in, and I did the other courses at Northwestern. And I finished and got my certification from Northwestern, which I have a picture of. I get a whole, completion of adult education program for the CFP. I started out at the tax class at Northwestern and wanted to take it, but I didn't have the money, and I was in with a bunch of people. Then I appeared back for estate planning, but I had to drop out, and they're like, where did you go? You were in tax class with us, and I was in investment class before that with them, and they were wondering, I just like, well, things didn't work out correctly, so I had to drop out of tax class. Really, I didn't want to say that I couldn't afford it, and I had to take it online. And then I caught them in estate planning. But part of the CFP program, when you do the adult education, you make friends. I made a lot of friends, like this girl Wang and multiple other people from other institutions that were, and I tried to form a study group after it with all of us. And truly, I asked several of them, I wanted to form a study group and continue our relationship, and they turned it down. I truly tried hard and wanted to form a study group. I liked all of them. And I did have a crush on the Asian girl who worked for Chase, and she married an FBI agent. But I liked her a lot, and then she seemed like she had a good relationship for her husband, or the guy she was getting engaged to. And so we just became good friends. But the whole point is, I tried to engage them in a study group. And I was going to lead it and put it together, and they didn't. We could have benefited greatly, I think. But, again, people make choices. I try to work with, and people from Chase, and she was at Chase, and another guy was a planner at Chase Bank. And then there was another guy. I forget what firm he went to, but he was an in-house financial planner for a company. And every employee of the company had to have a financial plan. And he was an in-house planner for this company. They hired a financial planner, brought him in-house, and every employee had to have a financial plan, and they had to have it reviewed every year. He put it together for them. They sit down, they bring everything in, but it was mandated. No employee couldn't have a financial plan, and they had to meet with him every year. Now, he turned it over to somebody else, but the whole point is the company wanted everybody to be financially solid. They didn't want anyone to have any stresses. They wanted them to be able to focus on their work and minimize their outside problems. So part of working for the company is you had to meet with the financial planner, and twice a year. He met with every employee twice a year. Every 6-month review, 6 month, and then an annual review. And it was mandatory. And so you bring in all your financials and you work with them, and they wanted to make sure that everybody was on the right financial path. It was required. He's the first in-house financial planner. I forget what the firm is, here in Chicago. But also, he's an extremely sharp kid. Yeah, okay, I'll give it right. He's a white kid, but extremely sharp. And he was the one talking about to my teacher, which my teacher didn't know. And my teacher was very sharp. He worked at Northern Trust, but he didn't know that the United States produces more oil. It's just that we didn't sell it like Saudi Arabia and that. But he brought it up. My thing, he didn't know that we actually have more reserves than any other country in the world put together. We have actually more reserves than Russia. They don't know that. It seems like Russia has the number one reserves, but it's not true. The United States does. And the United States has more reserves than numerous countries put together. But we don't touch them, like in the Rockies and other places. They did some mining for, gold and other things, but they never tapped in for natural gas and oil. And it's unbelievable. But it's because of new technology. They couldn't see through rock, so they didn't know that. And we have incredible reserves. We have more than anyone. So that whole thing with Russia, well, it's not quite true. We're the leader in incredible amounts of reserves. So, but they don't know that on the update thing. They just take what those analysts knew, which was the general common sense, which was not correct. We have incredible amounts of reserves of coal, oil, gas. Unbelievable. More than Venezuela or any other country. But what type it is, I don't know. I can't give you that, but my teacher, he's a smart guy. He was an engineer before he became a CFP and before he went to work for Northern Trust. And we went out afterwards, after we finished the exam, we went out and had drinks and food afterwards. Great guy. And he came back and he's like, yeah, but he was a smart guy. He's like, well, no, not from my understanding, but you say we do, I'll double check my information. And he went and double checked, and he came back the next class and he's like, yeah, you're right. I double checked my information. See, he didn't say he was wrong. He said, from my understanding, I don't believe it's true that we are, the United States is, but I'll double check my information and I'll get back to you the next class. And the next class, he said, okay, here's all the research, and he's right. We are. But smart people say, okay, I might have misunderstood. I need to double check my research. because also that would have alienated the student. And so, again, I'll double check. I'll re-verify. So again, it's not a show, it's about getting it correct. He has clients, he uses that information too. He learned a lot from us. And we learned from him, but he learned a lot from us. I have very sharp people in my class. And so he learned a lot of information that he never actually knew about. And truly, it helped him be a better financial planner. I wasn't a teach at Northwestern or St. Xavier, the CFP program. I was going to become an educator. But now that all my designations are right, but I was going to start teaching like they did. And so I was going to start teaching in the CFP program at one of the institutions. I pick insurance or investments or whatever, or just a class on general planning. But again, that was my plan. But that was a few years down the road. I wanted to finish up my CFA, my master's, and a few other things. So a couple more years down the road, which I got way off track, but a couple more years I was going to start teaching. Truly. And then my exit strategy is I would be less planning and more teaching. I would bring in other people to run the day-to-day, and I would focus on mainly teaching and developing others. So that was my plan, but all that, got trashed. My whole life got trashed. But I'm by Roosevelt University. Now they acquired Robert Morris. And so they merged with Robert Morris University, making a bigger university. So they have much more presence. So there's a great opportunity if the Bears do move. Roosevelt College can develop right on the campus where the Chicago Bears are. I'll go by there and show you. But if they take down the stadium, they can build the whole campus for Roosevelt University. They acquired Robert Morris. They're a bigger entity. My partner, David Kudo, he graduated from Roosevelt University. I told him he should be a, alumni. He's an alumni, but he should be an active member of the Alumni Council for Roosevelt University. But I'll show you down here. And think about this. If the Bears do move, and it would be great because where would they be? In Museum Park. And so they're right there by the planetarium, the Shedd Aquarium, and the Field Museum, and they can integrate the university into Museum Park, into those institutions, and they can have a collaboration by moving Roosevelt University there. And, they can gain a much more significant presence in Chicago. Chicago is very much a college town. People don't understand this. It's like when I went to Boston, unlike New York, Boston is a big college town. There's Boston University, Boston College, and several Ivy League schools. Boston itself, that city, is an incredible college town. Serious, big-time college town. But it's different because most of those programs aren't very significant. Yes, like University of Massachusetts, where UMass, the hospital, is awesome, but it's the university hospital. But their programs are small. They're athletic programs. They're Division 2, 3, so maybe 1A. And then some are Division 1, but, not powerhouses. But Boston is a college town, and Chicago is very much like Boston. So is his lights off because he wants to roll that way for some reason, because he's, wants to pull up without being noticed? Okay. But this is a college town. People don't understand. You have Northwestern, University of Chicago down here. You have University of Chicago in Hyde Park. You have UIC. You have Roosevelt University, which merged with Robert Morris University. You have East West University. You have Columbia University, or Columbia College, CCC, Columbia College of Chicago right here. This is a college town. It is exactly like Boston. And the colleges dominate. And they do, but people don't realize it and don't think about it. But this is a college town, and there is a lot of research institutions with those schools, like the security research at the University of Chicago, CRISP, Center for Security Research, and there's all kinds of research. University of Chicago Medical School, they have all kinds of research. Northwestern Medical School, they have all kinds of research. This is very much a college central. Chicago is a college dominated city. More so than Los Angeles or any of the others. They have some big schools, UCLA and USC, but not so. The breadth of Chicago, North Park College, North Park University, and many others, I can go on, but you don't understand. Northeastern. This is very much a college-dominated city, just like Boston is. People don't realize that, but if you go up there, and I did, and I've been there a few times, I love Boston. Boston is very similar to Chicago. It's on the water. It has the Back Bay. It's on the water. Now it's on the ocean, but it's very similar to Chicago. It's a smaller version of Chicago. That's why I talked to Jen about maybe moving there. I love Boston. But it's a college-dominated town. And so this is a college-dominated town. So you take out Soldier Field here, and you can put it here, or you can put it at the Michael Reese, truly, Roosevelt University. It can build out. There's there's the Illinois Institute of Technology, which wants to grow and is growing rapidly again. This is very much a college-dominated town. And that means it has tons and tons of research and all these institutions. Unbelievable amount of research in all these institutions. So the mayor of Chicago never talked about. Richard Dunn Daly never understood this. I wrote pieces on this in 2006 to the mayor's office extensively on how they don't understand that the university... Now, I'm wondering here, it's all blocked off. Is it saying that it's open here? But I can't fit my car through there. But is the opening there? I love the view. I don't know why it's closed off. Truly. And then you get bullied by the police. I don't know why it has to close down. Why don't the police get better at doing their job? They close everything down. They close the parks down. They close all this stuff down. And you pay all this money for law enforcement so you can keep everything open. That's the point of it. They're supposed to provide the security so there's 24/7 access. When you have to close things down to make them safe, then the police is failing to do their job. And this makes it a very unfriendly college town. Because in college, you're up, you go out late night, you burn the midnight oil. Truly, you're out late, then you go to bed, and then you get up at 7 a.m. and you hit classes at 8. And it's a 4-year thing, but you're sucking the marrow in college out of life. You're highly active. College, you're more active than any time you've ever been in your entire life. It is unlike high school. It is. You're involved in so many things, going so many places, doing so many things. And that's why this town has to go 24/7. They don't understand. And getting rid of the Bears Stadium and putting a college campus here, like Roosevelt University, build it out. They can put an extensive campus right here. Getting rid of the parking garages and everything else. I mean, it would only make sense. And building out another university to be a powerhouse. Feeding into the educational base of all the corporations and the research of the Chicagoland area. So, all these parking lots and that around, they can get rid of them. They don't need them for the Shed Aquarium and any of that. And so they can build out a beautiful lakefront campus right here and integrate into, the different things. And then they can have all kinds of marine biology. They're right here. Freshwater lake, one of the largest. They can have marine biology. They can do studies with electrical engineers on wave and tidal energy. Truly, mechanical engineers building it with electrical engineers, working with marine biologists, trying to harvest the power, and then working on the biology and everything else of the lake, building the mechanical engineers and electrical and marine biologists, building the structures that are needed and so on. Truly. And then you have the construction, foremans and many others, but all this can be built out at Roosevelt University, right? And my partner David was looking to build the foundation and something to dump a ton of money into. Well, he could dump it into Roosevelt University and build it out. And they have a ton of room here. And this will pour incredible amounts of more, college students in here to feed the businesses, which need incredible amounts of good students. And they, get to know Chicago and get to love Chicago. So I don't understand what Chicago doing with all this violence. I mean, it's nuts. It totally goes against everything that this city should be. It should be an incredible, wonderful, welcoming, rich, unbelievably positive environment. So I don't get it. And we are stifling unbelievable amounts of industries. From aerospace, we had Boeing here. We could have built out all the kinds of aerospace programs. Truly, we could have built out our aerospace programs. We could have built out all our architectural programs, our material design programs, material engineers, and you name it. And somehow we're focused on, let's get the violence. I don't want to see the flashing lights. I want the cops doing it correctly, nipping it in the bud, working with the churches, community area policing, people doing the right thing. So This city is missing out huge in all these other industries, and it doesn't. I want the chip industry to come here. We have the purest quartz in the United States, in the world. 99.99999% pure quartz. Perfect to make silicon chips. Bringing all those technology, plus all the vendors that make the different products, machines like Walsh Brothers can get into the lithograph machines and many others that go into making the chips. There's unbelievable amounts of technology, all kinds of systems and software that needs to be created and designed and constantly updated for making chips better. This can be unbelievable. We had Motorola. Motorola used to lead the world in smart chips at one time. They were cell phone king of the world, Motorola was. Chicago opened. I used to use their two-way radios, but they were number one, the Razr. They were the number one phone company in the world. Also, people don't know, and you have to dig in the past, but they were the number one maker of smart chips in the world. No one made more sophisticated chips in the world than Motorola, and they made them right here in Chicago. But Motorola, because they took a hit, they didn't diversify with cell phones, and they went right down the tube. So did Nokia take a similar type of plunge as Motorola. So this used to be here. And those chips are in more things than ever. And they're getting put in more things than ever. So the chip industry is exploding. And Chicago and Illinois is ripe to be on the cutting edge of it. So I don't get it. Navy Pier should be open. I kept my place open to 2 and 3 in the morning on Navy Pier. Yeah. 6 days a week we were open to 2 in the morning on Navy Pier. 2 in the morning. And then one day, Saturday, going into Sunday morning, we were open to 3 a.m. on Navy Pier. So Navy Pier, Charlie's Ale House, was open to 2 and 3 in the morning. We were open to 2 and 3 in the morning, and people could come on the pier. I worked it out with security. As long as they were going to Charlie's Ale House, all they had to do is say it to security, I'm going to Charlie's, and they would let them onto the pier to go to Charlie's. They would watch them, but they were allowed on the pier. You could come on the pier at 1 in the morning, 1:30 in the morning to go to Charlie's on a Saturday, 2 in the morning to go to Charlie's on a Saturday, Sunday morning to go hang out on Navy Pier. Open to 2 and 3 in the morning. 2 and 3 in the morning. So don't tell me I did that. My owners didn't do that. I negotiated and set my own hours. My owners loved all the money that flowed in. We were slammed to the time we closed. When we closed at 2, we were slammed. We could have went to non-alcohol, opened up the kitchen again, and started serving non-alcohol and breakfast. We could have went 24 hours on Navy Pier. Liquor to 2 and 3. You have to finish by 2. You have to finish by 3. You don't have to leave. We clear out all the liquor. And then we turn to non-alcoholic. Water, soda, milk, you name it. All kinds of non-alcoholic drinks. I used to make a lot of non-alcoholic drinks for kids at Dave & Buster's. Truly, like pina coladas and that, without the coconut rum. I use the pina colada mix and make them pina coladas without the liquor. I make them all kinds of non-alcoholic drinks. And so you can still make the pina coladas. I serve non-alcoholic margaritas for kids. I didn't put in the tequila. I used other things for sweetener. So I didn't put in the grenadine or, liqueur, or Cointreau, I should say. I used other things like simple syrup. And so I made these non-alcoholic margaritas. I made cherry cokes. I made all kinds of things for children or people that didn't drink. All these mocktails. So you turn it over, you're still making all kinds of cocktails, but they're non-alcoholic cocktails. I don't understand the casino, like Rivers, they shut down the bar. Why shut down the bar? Bar's open 24/7. We're just not serving alcohol anymore. But you can come up for all kinds of mocktails. You can get all kinds of mocktail martinis. Truly. It's ridiculous, these places. I come up with all this stuff, and when I was running places, I implemented it. And my places were incredibly profitable. And we were doing stuff that others weren't. Others need to start doing it. This city is all wrong in what it's doing. And it creates a lot more job for Uber and taxi cab drivers, and it creates more work for CTA and RTA because they get all these dead hours, they don't make money. But the college students, they'll be out all over the place, and the people that work in the industry. And sometimes there are college students that work in the industry like I did. But again, I don't understand. This can be incredibly wonderful, incredibly vibrant. And the schools, guess what? All they have to do is have high standards for the students and enforce the standards. So meaning they don't have to have the highest to get into the school, but they have to have the highest standards for ethics and morals. So Roosevelt University, maybe it's a 2.7 to get in, or a 2.5 to get in. 2.5 high school with, 20-something on your ACT to get into Roosevelt University. Now, the University of Arizona does one special for Tucson kids. You have to have a 20-something on the ACT, but you only have to have a 2.0 for high school. But you have to have a 27 on the ACT, but you don't have to have the higher grade point average, just a 2.0. But that's only for kids from Tucson. You have to be a Tucson citizen or Tucson resident to get that. The University of Arizona gives an exception. It's harder for out-of-state students to get in. And most of the students are truly on campus are from out of state. The majority of their students are from out of state. But it's easier for in-state students to get in, but they only take so many. Oh, yeah, they don't take, so they fill up on enrollment for the freshmen, and they only take so many in-state. So it's not like, every in-state. No, they only take so many in-state. But all the businesses and the universities, like this guy, he should get a ticket. He didn't ring his bell. He didn't do anything. Bikers in Tucson would get tickets. This guy's a piece of garbage. A piece of human filth. Truly. So, truly, I hate people that break the law. He didn't do anything to give me an FYI. He darted out in front of my car. He's a piece of human filth. You can even put him into a mental health institution. He's suicidal. Oh, yeah. Riding out in front of a car, that can be deemed suicidal, and he can be institutionalized for doing that. So somebody jaywalking against the light, like those black guys, they can be institutionalized. 72-hour review of their mental health status. Truly. You're not supposed to be putting yourself at jeopardy. So there's something wrong in your head. You're a sicko. And so they're supposed to be institutionalizing them. They did to me 3 times. I didn't do anything wrong. I followed every rule. They wrongfully imprisoned me. But you're jaywalking, they can put you in for 72 hours. Maybe suicidal. Truly, like the homeless guy in the middle of the street and that. They need to go in. If he's not taking care of himself, needs to go in to get a review. And they can take him in for a 72-hour assessment. So these people that are doing these things aren't right in the mind. And when they see that, the police says, I'm sorry, we got to hold you for a 72-hour mental evaluation. You're going to go through a mental evaluation. We want to know why you blew that light. You're putting yourself at jeopardy. Truly, like this guy. They should lock you up in a mental health institution. 72-hour review. Suicidal. Crossing against the light. Truly, it is suicidal. So he can be locked up for 72 hours for a mental health review. Just like these girls walking in the street. I'd lock them up. I don't care what you have to get. You're violating the law. And that means you might be suicidal. Postpartum. Whatever. Truly. 72-hour review. The law states that you can't do things to put your life at risk. Even mountain climbing and that, you have to do everything calculated what they allow. The parks tell you how you can climb the mountain. Do you know that? The parks have rules where you can climb, where you can't climb. And you have to follow the national parks, the different parks. They have the rules of where they allow you to do. You have to remove your hooks and Truly. And if you don't, they fine you. So you don't get to climb the way you, any way what you want. You have to follow what the park considers is appropriate. So just like a homeless guy reaching into the trash can, I put him under a 72-hour review. So it's ridiculous, all this stuff. A healthy person wants to get healthy. A scam artist, they still want to be healthy. You know a scam artist? And I've been around, I've met, and meaning I've met and discovered them and unearthed them, but they want to be healthy too. They just fake their thing, like the Eddie Murphy in Trading Places. He faked he had no legs. He was a scam artist. They're perfectly healthy. They just fake their illness. But they're scam artists. They're supposed to go to jail. They need a mental evaluation. Why are they a thief? Why don't they get a normal job? Do they have problems with authority? Well, then we'll find you an independent job. You can work from home or some other. But truly, the point is in it to end it. Solving the problem. So again, all these universities can raise their ethical and moral standards and keep it up for the students coming in. Their academic can stay the same requirement, but their moral and ethics can be incredibly tight. So the only people that end up here and it can be tons and tons of them, are highly moral and highly ethical, and if they violate, they're removed from the city right away. The university does it. They kick them out. And they notify the city that the student was kicked out of the university. They notify the city the student was kicked out of the university. And their landlord gets a notification as well. And it can be in the landlord contract that if you get kicked out of the university, you immediately are evicted from your residence within 1 week. After you're ejected from the university, you're immediately ejected from your residence within 1 week. They need to work together. They don't want to, benefit unethical people. So they kick them out within 1 week. You get an appeal process, and if it fails, you have to be out, and you can't have another residence in the city of Chicago, and you can't be homeless. So that means you can't stay. And no, you can't shack up at your friends. You have to be on the lease. You have to be on the lease. You can stay over for a night, but no more this boyfriend, girlfriend. No, once you move in, you got to be on the lease. Like when I moved in with Jen, I need to get cleared by the building. They have to do a background check on me. They're totally wrong. The building should have had me do a background check. You want somebody to move in? Okay, so it's fine. 2 people can live in a unit. They have to go through a background check. And the building gets to deny them. Sorry, your boyfriend can't move in with you, or your girlfriend can't move in with you. She doesn't meet the requirements. You can sell your unit, the association will be fine with buying it. But they can't. These are the things they violated, and you can have a clemency process. They have to do blank, 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 and maybe in a year they can move in with you. But they just can't move in. So the buildings, anyone, because you can't, you don't know who's on the property, and everybody's liable. So you can't just say, oh, my family's coming over for the weekend. No, they have to be cleared with the building. I've been through all this stuff. You got to be cleared with the building. Go to a hotel. They'll do their due diligence. The funny thing is, the hotel's responsible. If they have a murderer or anything else on property, well, you can sue the hotel. So if they're not doing their background checks and they have cartel members and people get shot and killed, which happened at Christie's in Cancun, and the cartel members came in and they shot down. But there's a whole long story. But Christie's and everything was held responsible for wrongful deaths. It was their job to know. Their job to know their client. And it never happened again. All of them got very tight. But they don't understand all these places truly have that risk. So somebody staying like in this place, they got to run over. Even if they're staying over the night, they got to clear through the building. They got to clear through the building. Why? So you don't get Jeffrey Dahmer. And it doesn't matter if it's a 3-flat in that. They have to have services and set it up where they work with these background check services. So all the universities have to work with them as well. And they run them, both domestic and international. Because sometimes people, I found out, are U.S. citizens. They do the crimes only overseas and come back. So they never have any violations here in the United States. So they seem like a very good person. They just hide their crimes overseas. So again, you work with it, and so the people come in, you got to have the clearance. And this prevents people from being raped in the complex or them killing somebody truly bringing them in and then offing them like Jeffrey Dahmer in Milwaukee. Now everybody that comes on the property has to go through clearance. And they can be TSA. Once somebody goes through the clearance, it's an ongoing background check if they're ever going to come back. So they can be on the TSA pre-check for the building where there's constant monitoring. So you got a boyfriend and it goes on the TSA pre-check. Or if you got a girlfriend, like my complex, and she was coming over, she'd be on the TSA pre-check. And if anything comes up, the association would be notified immediately. And then I would be notified and the girlfriend would no longer be allowed to come over because of some violation. So we can use this for all the buildings. All these buildings didn't do this. They had the gangbangers selling drugs in the building. They didn't do any background checks or anything. My friend who owns properties on the south side, John, who went to school with me at the University of Arizona, Deerfield High School, and he's a financial planner. He buys buildings, and they have to do drug tests to live in his building, and they have to go through background checks. And they're told if they have any gang affiliations and that any children or them and criminal, they can be evicted from the complex immediately. That's part of signing the lease. And what did he tell me? His buildings are filled and people love it because they don't live around any criminals. They don't have to worry about any gangbangers or drug people. And if they bring anyone on the property and they deal drugs, they're evicted. So if you bring somebody on property and they do criminal activity, they're evicted. So they don't have to worry about the kids bringing over somebody and dealing drugs on the property. And this is in the black community. He has multi houses, multi units, 20 units or whatever, big buildings. But the buildings are incredibly safe. And everybody goes through this and they have to be constantly monitored. And this is a long time ago, but this is how he made sure his real estate didn't get get destroyed, because they revamped the whole building, and they did, and the units and everything was nice, and they kept it nice, but they didn't allow any hoodlums, so they didn't have any gangbangers, any drug dealers, so on and so forth in the building. And their properties went up. Now, other places were suffering around, but his rent rolls and his properties were unbelievable, and he kept on acquiring them. And he applied that process over and over again. And his buildings were high demand. And it was a way to get the bad people out in the neighborhood. He acquired structure after structure after structure and vet them. And he'd give them all this modernization. Oh yeah, he'd fully renovate the thing. And they would be living in really nice places. But he didn't want them destroying the place. And so he was very strict. But he said he didn't have any problems with tenants. They loved it. They felt incredibly safe. Their kids felt safe. Any kid that they made friends with wasn't involved in gangs. So anyone that lived in the building, the other kids hung out with them, that they weren't involved in gangs because you'd be evicted from the building. So again, they can apply that same moral and ethics in Chicago. I don't understand why they don't do that. Like in Florida, all those drug dealers were buying houses with illegal money. They have to have a profession. How are you getting the money? It's kind of stupid. And they have this homestead exemption. And so all these criminals were buying these very expensive homes, and they're, because of the homestead exemption, changing it. You don't have to change it. You have to require that this due diligence needs to be done before they can purchase a resident. But they were allowing all these drug dealers to pile unbelievable millions in the property, and then the government couldn't touch it. Couldn't touch it because of the homestead exemption in Florida. So the lawyers advised their illegal clients to plow all their money into real estate. And they owned all this real estate that generated all this revenue for them, and the government couldn't touch it because of the homesteads exemptions and that. So again, the banks and everybody not doing their job. So they can't own things like gangbangers owning a car. How the hell does a gangbanger buy a car? How does that? Truly, because when you get title in that, they have to do a background check on you. And so how does they get a driver's license, a gangbanger? If you're a gangbanger or a criminal, your license should be suspended immediately. Taking away your ability to be, still have to carry a state ID, but your driver's license is invalid. So again, like I'm just by Rick's Cabaret. That means the guys coming in and coming out, they don't have to worry about them being involved in illegal activities that put their, the girls at risk. The drug dealers all hopped up on drugs and that, getting involved and, with the bad boys. Well, there's no bad boys in here. All they're doing is meeting good guys. And the good guys follow the rules and do things appropriately. So, protecting the girls protect the guys. Truly. So, the whole point is they don't have to worry about, things going in. Getting, bad guys. So, again, understanding this and doing the right thing. And that's why these businesses and that, they got to do their extensive background, the city. And that's why everything has to be independent. You can be an independent, but you got to get a business license. And those business licenses generate revenue for the city. So you got to get a business license to be an Uber or Lyft driver. The city requires you to get a business license. Uber and Lyft can hire you. That's a separate thing. But to be a Uber or Lyft or taxi cab or curb, you have to get a business license as an independent contractor. And then the city gets to do their due diligence on you and can yank the business license. Even if Uber and Lyft wouldn't fire you, the city can fire you by yanking your business license. So all they have to do is change the law and require the limos and all that. Truly, even if you're working for the company, you still have to get a business license, a certification through the city. And the city yanks the certification, you're out of business. So that all they have to do is make it an ordinance. And so all those have to get this certification. Truly, they called a head tax. He said, no, a certification. And the city certifies every employee. And all firms have to be like, you have to have your sanitation license and so on. And the city can yank your sanitation license. You can't work in a bar. You can't work in a restaurant. You can't work in meat packing industry and that. Truly, you're done. You can't work in that profession because the city yanked your sanitation license. You have to have a sanitation. In Arizona, that's what they do. If you violate, like a waiter or server, they yank your sanitation license. You're immediately fired from that place. You can't work there. So there's ways to create leverage. So you require them to have this, their server's license or their bartending license. Even if they're an employee, they have to get certified as a bartender or a waiter. That's what the city should be doing. And then if somebody violates something called the laws, They just yank the license and they're immediately fired and they're out of here. And they can mandate that you must, in all leases, in all mortgages, you must maintain your certification. And if the city yanks your certification for your type of employment, you're immediately terminated and evicted from your residence. The house is immediately put up for sale. So it can do it that way. There's a lot of ways to stick it to them, to make sure they follow the law. Truly, they got to go through court and review and everything. It's arbitration and mediation. But if they're found guilty, it's yanked and they're bye-bye. Like pizza delivery drivers and all that. They can just yank it. And you can't deliver pizzas anymore. So again, it is a good way, and it requires them to go through this training and be compliant. So again, raising these standards, and you can do it for 3 million people. And if it gets yanked, you're gone. You go through and it's proven it was correctly yanked, you're gone. You got to give them due process. But if it's found true, they're gone. So, again, this stuff's got to end. You want all this high-tech industry and you want to protect it and everything else. Well, how do you do that? You do the right thing, set the right standards where the people are moral and ethic, and you can yank it and get rid of them if they violate the morals and ethics. So again, I don't understand. This should be fairly easy to rein all these people in. So if I was mayor or I was governor or I was on the county board like Tony Plikrenko, which I heard good things about her from Mike, who interviewed with her. He decided not to work there, but again, he said good things about her. But again, doesn't she want a better county? Doesn't she want a better city within the county? So holding these people accountable, and then you can bring in all this high tech, and you can feel secure. So again, this is supposed to be a wonderful place to be. But not a lot of people down here, a lot of police. So again, I don't know. You got to go back when this used to be a booming street and had a great crowd. This used to have a great crowd. And, it was part of the Gold Coast with Gibson's and everything else, and it went downhill. Why? Because they lowered their standards. Instead of marketing and reinventing and refreshing themselves, they lowered their standards because, Hubbard Street and other places opened, and we opened at Baja Beach Club. We used to have a bus come down here and pick up people. Instead of refreshing and competing, they lowered their standards. All the people went over to our place. We had 4 or 5 hour waits sometimes. And all the hooligans came here on Division. Instead of, modernizing and competing. We still got a large segment of business, but they would also kept a large segment and got newer clients too that were better. So you reap what you sow. You drop the standards, well, then you get lower standard. High standard people and low standard people don't mix. High standard people have too much to lose. And so they don't want to be around lower standard people because they put them at jeopardy. They make foolish decisions. Like my friend Rob. He kicked out my friend DA because he got drunk. It put him at risk. And DA needed to clean up and not make stupid mistakes. They were roommates in college, in grad school, I think. Maybe undergrad. I forget, grad or undergrad. But great guy. But he got carried away and drank too much. He didn't do that again. We hung out a bunch of times after that, too. He didn't get stupid drunk again. He got the point. He was pissed that he didn't, mind his drinking. And Rob was in the military. And so, he has a little bit more, discipline. And DA family owns a big vineyard in France. And he's head of a pharmaceutical company here in the United States. Great guy. But again, it was good for him to wake up. He's jeopardizing his own future. Rob's not going to let him jeopardize his own future. So you say, yes, Rob's watching, but he's also watching out for him. So when you allow your friends to lead you and you don't keep them, and I learned this from my mistakes, put up the proper resistance, then they rub on you wrongly. You have to save them from yourself, and that saves you from them. Truly. So anyways, the city could be incredible. It can be incredibly safe, incredibly productive. I mean, it's positioned incredible on the lakefront. I mean, it has everything. It just has to have coordination, it has to have good leadership from the state, county, and local. And Chicago could be rising, like Rahm Emanuel said. And this negativity can disappear. So there's ways to do it, and it's still all capitalism. But the standards are higher. And so people need to follow the rules. Now it doesn't become, I'm going to get a ticket and go to court and pay my fine. No more. Now, my life is over here. I'm out and I'm going somewhere else. I'm done. So a lot to lose. So we can change it. We can make it better. We can tighten it up. And it's all legal under the Constitution. And what do they get? A great place to work. People are fair, treat them good, and so on. I mean, this is waiting to explode, this city. Truly, it is. The universities and everything else are waiting to explode, but they need the right people. Or if not, they go under. So it's all about getting the right people. And so we can do it. And what happens? Their life gets better and my life gets better. So we get better together. And you don't get like this piece of junk right here is threatening me with a vehicle called assault. So you yank the license. I'm not going anywhere faster. There's a stop sign up there. That's a red light. You're going through the yellow. You're not a police car. This is a side street. What's it, 25 miles an hour? They're like, oh, we're doing this, because of the protests with Martin Luther King and civil liberties. Look at that. Look at that piece of livery driver. They should link his license, and that's the last day he drives. Flying around. Look at the pollution coming out of that tail. Flooding all that fucking pollution into the atmosphere. All these people in the city gagging it down, sucking off of all his fumes, killing all the brain cells. Truly, he has a GPS. He knows how far from the location. He's not a paramedic. He's not a police car. He's not a first responder. He has no right to be flying around. He's just a piece of garbage. But didn't we learn from Britain and all these places where they use the car flying around, running over people? Truly, they were flying around in California and all these places. Well, you yank it. Last day driving. And the funny thing is, the reason that happened in Great Britain and that they didn't even have good standards for checking people. So these people that are affiliated with these organizations, and the organizations were proved that they kill people. How can they get a driver's license? How can they rent a car? I mean, it's ridiculous in their ignorance. So, I don't care. Lawyers can work in other fields. There are a lot of other fields. Get another job. You did it to me, wrongfully firing me numerous times. So, I don't care how big the firm is. It collapses. Too bad. You know what happens? The employment law goes up. All this is employment law. McGuire Woods has one of the biggest employment law divisions, and it grows massively more. So they lose. The criminal department shrinks exponentially. And then employment law grows, and other fields grow. Business law, you name it. So we don't need scumbags. We should be getting rid of all of them. It should be cleaning house. Heaven on earth. Getting rid of every single scumbag. They don't exist as far as I can see. There is none. We don't need them. This is all part of security. We're already in a labor shortage. How many more cops? How many more security guards? We need them for monitoring the lake and other things. But truly, how much do you want to grow those fields? We already have Ring Doorbell and ADT and so on and so forth. All these monitoring services, and if they're doing their job, the call centers build out. And they can ring somebody right at Ring Doorbell. It goes to remote call center. And they're like, how can I help you? I'm here to see blank blank. Okay, well, you have to scan your ID. Please swipe your driver's license. And they swipe it, and a picture comes up because they want entrance. Now you can see their information. And they match the picture from the license to them, and they run the background check. You don't have to enter the residence. And that means any pizza driver or delivery driver, it's all logged. It matches them. So no one can, do a fake delivery. Like, oh yeah, here's your Chinese food and poison you. Like they did with today. He dropped the drugs in this guy's soup. And he overdosed. In Real Potential, or anyways, the whole point is you tie it to them, and they can't just leave the city and leave the country, because that's what somebody does when they are doing bad things. They pack up and leave immediately. So they're running. They get out of the city. Well, you know that already. You're tracing them. You know that. So they're leaving. They're checking out. They checked in at this time. They checked out. Well, why would they be a delivery driver? I understand going up to Milwaukee and being an Uber and that, but you have to have a legitimate reason. And you're not handling any food or anything else. But again, these companies are supposed to be doing their due diligence. So you have these different entities, like who you're living with, the DMV doing their job. The city has city stickers in Chicago. They got to review you. So all these different agencies are monitoring you. So you have all these different things that are monitoring you. You have your human resources that are monitoring you. You have the state that's monitoring you with the state IDs. You have the federal government that's monitoring you with the IRS. The Department of Treasury, which the IRS is under. So you have all these things, and if these agencies are doing things correctly, unearthing bad people can happen very quickly. Because human resources shows that they're not showing up for work. No show, no call. They log that. And the IRS gets the log of how many days he got paid for and the days he didn't, how many days were sick. That's all through the IRS, the State Department, the County Department, and the City Department of Revenue. How many sick days? How many days did he not show up? These are his days off. They have to have all that. That's his work record through the Department of Labor. They have to have his work schedule through the Department of Labor. And so that's all recorded. So every employee that's working anywhere, that's all recorded through the Department of Labor. So they got a log. Did they work today? Didn't they work today? It's all very easy now, and that gets reported. And then the IRS can cross-reference that with the pay. So you can't ghost payroll or anything. So Uber, you know that from the GPS. Didn't I tell you that an IRS audit, the guy said he was going blank, 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 and they said, okay, show me the appointment schedule, and then show me where you were and where the appointment was. and the IRS calculated the miles. And he lied about the miles. Because I keep all my appointments in my calendar. What's in office, what's out of office, and the miles that I logged. And so they busted him for lying about his mileage. And he went to jail for tax fraud. So I tell these people, you can put the miles in, but you're going to jail. Because they're going to pull it up, and if you get audited, they're going to say, okay, well, prove me where all these trips are. You have to prove to them. And they're going to what? Well, what was the free time? I mean, this, and they enter back into the number. So, you don't understand. With the system, just because they haven't pulled your name doesn't mean they can't. The IRS is allowed to do random audits. And so you can be called up for a random audit. And they'll be like, where's this? Where's that? I dealt with Simon got audited. Steve got audited by IRS. I had so many people I dealt with that got audited. And I know former IRS agents. And I tell all my clients, don't do anything wrong. Make sure we can work on tax avoidance. There's all kinds of ways, and we can work on deductions and so on and so forth. And then there's all these different types of entities, whether sub S or whatever, and we can figure it out. But never the fraud. So they pulled it up, and the guy who was, I don't know, delivery or whatever, he got busted. Bye-bye, you're going to jail because it's a criminal charge with fines. So these people think they're getting away with something. No, their ticket hasn't been punched yet. And that's what the IRS is doing at the federal. What's the state doing? Because you have to file a state return too. What's the State Department of Revenue doing? Where are their auditors? Where are their state revenue agents? Truly, where are they doing their audit? Where's the Cook County doing theirs? Where is the city of Chicago, who I loved, and she died, and I can't pull up her name, as a white lady, Judy Bart DePinka? Yeah. And she was awesome. She was a very hard-nosed, kind of grind, auditing, pulling numbers, trying to find all the corruption. She had big problems with a lot of people, but she didn't get backup from the state's attorney or the county attorney or the city attorney or the federal prosecutor. You know, and she kept on complaining about the corruption and everything else and had the numbers and that. But shouldn't they be brought up on charges failing to prosecute? Yes, they should. So we can make this a better, cleaner, safer, friendlier environment.